Okay, let's take a look at Chapter 5, the repetition structure. Topics covered: repetition structures, do loop statement, pretest loop, string concatenation, infinite loops, do loop, counters, accumulators, for next, pretest do loop, post-test do loop, counter, for next loop. Repetition structure, referred to more simply as a loop, need the computer to repeatedly process one or more program instructions. Print the name David 5 times, for example. Um, and I'm going to show examples. Let you read these topics here. Here's a pretest loop with looping condition. Declare a variable named int num, initialize it to 1. Repeat while int num is less than or equal to 5. Display int num in LBL nums. Add 1 to int num and end repeat while. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit different examples here. They got our examples here, and then they talk about it down here. But I want to show you the practical examples. Not practical. I'm gonna count numbers from 1 to 5. Um, Not count. Add them. Now I'm even going to make it a little bit more um, robust. I'll input the number, and I'm going to add all the numbers from 1 up to that number. Okay, so to begin with here, I need my toolbox. Looks like I closed it earlier. So if I do my view and where's toolbox? There's toolbox. Get my toolbox. I created a new project, by the way. Okay, so I'm gonna drop on a label. Drop on a text box. And drop on a button. I'm clicking those, and then I'm coming over here, like here, I put the label. After I click that, I'm coming over here. I'm left mouse clicking and dragging it to be a size, and then another label for my answer. Okay, and I need my properties window open. So a very easy way to do that is just right click on one of these and choose properties. It's also under the view option up here somewhere. Okay, now this is going to be my number, so let me give it a caption. Under the text property as number. I'm going to be referring to this in my code, this text box right here. So I'm going to give it a name. So I come up here where it has name with parentheses around it. And I'm going to call this TB underscore number. The button, I want it to say add. And since I'm going to, oops, wrong place. Since I'm referring to it in code, I'm going to give this a name of button add. My text, I want to say add. Label here, I'm going to give it a text of answer. And since I'm going to be dumping my answer in label 3, I want to have that as a name. So up here with a name around with parentheses, I'll give it LB underscore answer. And initially I'll set it to 0. So I want text to say 0. Now, if I click my form one time, I can change its text to say adding numbers. Move these a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to double click add now. I try to follow their little algorithm here. Declare a variable named int num. Well, dim int num as integer. Initialize it to 1, not 0. Initialize it to 1. And then I'm going to repeat while int num is less than or equal to 5. This goes at the top of the loop. Now I'm going to talk about what this is doing as we after I finish this example. Display, I'm not going to display, I'm going to add it, and add 1 to int num. So int num is going to equal to int num plus 1. Okay. This right here is my initialization. These are the 3 components to a while loop. Here is where I'm doing my check. So my logical check. This is a logical check to see if you're done. And this is my increment. In this case, I'm adding 1 to it. You have to have these 3 items. These are the 3 main components of a while loop. If you don't initialize it, it gives you an error probably, or just doesn't work right. You have to check it. So you have to have some kind of Boolean condition here. This should return true or false. So the symbols you can use in here are less than or equal to, greater than equal to, equal, not equal, which I think is a less than, greater than. And then you have to increment it to increase the value of int num. If you don't increase the value of int num, then your program probably won't ever successfully finish. Okay, so that's what they got. Now let's tailor this to our program. We're not going to hard code 5. We're going to bring 5 in from this text box right here, TB underscore number. So I'll come over here. That's going to be my maximum number as integer. And I'll say maximum number is equal to, mixing up the programming languages, integer dot parse, try parse. I'll try parse. It might be try parse. I'll try parse first. I'll try it. I'll eventually say it right. LTB text box number dot text. Appears like I chose the right one, or maybe both of them work. We'll see. So now I'm going to ask the user to input that number instead of hard coding 5. So I can replace 5 with max number. Okay, now I said I was going to add them together, sum them, which means I need another variable for sum. And you don't have to put these on separate lines, by the way. You can put a comma here, like that. There's nothing wrong with that. And then down here, I'm going to say, well, I have to initialize my sum. Since I'm adding, we have to initialize sum to 0. Then down here, I'll say sum is equal to sum plus int num. And then I want to write, by the way, The two main looping structures I'm going to focus on are the while and the for. I'll skip over the other ones so fast you'll wonder why I didn't show them. If you like to use them, go ahead and use them. Read the book, find out how to use it. For and while loops will do everything you need. So there's other structures, other types of structures you don't need. Now I need to write this out. So it's lb underscore answer dot text is equal to, and is this a string? Yeah, string. And then of sum. Or maybe not. Let's try it again. Sum dot toString. There we go. I eventually remembered. How many programming languages am I teaching this semester? There's Java, Visual Basic, C#, Swift. I guess those just those four. Okay, so I'll run this now. Now I'll put something in I can test. So I'll put 3 in, because I can add all the numbers from 1 to 3. 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. So I'll put 3 in here, click that, it gives me 6. Now let me talk about what in the world's going on here. I bring up Notepad. Okay, so I got 3 variables initialized. int num, max num, sum. Okay, so it's coming down here, doing this line of code right here. So this is retrieving the value from the text box, converted into an integer, and placing it into max num. So in our case, we put 3 in there. So that'll be 3. Int num is putting 1 in. Sum, we initialize to 0. It's coming down here. It's doing this check. So it's checking if int num is less than or equal to max num. Well, int num is 1 currently. Max num is 3. 1 is less than or equal to 3. So that's true. So it's kind of coming down into here. It's doing this next line of code. Sum is equal to sum plus int num. So it'll go retrieve the old value of sum, which is 0. It'll add int num, which is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1, and then it'll reassign it to sum. So put a 1 there. Next line of code is int num is equal to int num plus 1. That increases int num by 1. So that's 2. Hits the end while, comes up here back to the while, and does this check. Is int num still less than or equal to max num? Well, it is. 2 is less than or equal to 3. So that's true. So it comes down here, it says sum is equal to sum plus int num. So it gets the old value of sum, which is now 1. It adds into int num, which is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then writes it back out to sum, which is 3. Then int num is equal to int num plus 1. It increases int num by 1. Hits the end while, come back up here to beginning while, and checks, is int num still less than or equal to max num? It is. Int num is 3, max num is 3, so it's not less than, but it's equal to. So go down to the next line. Sum is equal to sum plus int num. We choose the old value of sum, which is 3, plus the value of int num, which is 3, which gives us 6, and writes it back out to sum. Increases int num by 1. So int num is now 4. Hits the end while, comes back up here, does this check again up here, my logical check. Int num is 4, less than or equal to max num, which is 3. Is 4 less than or equal to 3? No, it isn't, so that's false. So it kicks out here and does the next line of code down here, which then writes out the value of sum. So that's a way a while loop works. Now I want to show you some debugging here. If your program's not working, that's the first question I'll ask you. Did you debug it? And if you say, well, what's the debugging? I'll go try you watch the video. But this allows you to see step by step what's going on. So weird things that are occurring, you can then see what's the problem. Okay, so up here, there's a debug, start debugging. See, it's also F5. It's also the default one here. Although you can choose this drop down. Lie. Nothing else under the drop down. Okay, I'll choose start. I'll put 3 in here, and I click add. Now, oh, by the way, when I clicked over here in this gray area, that created a breakpoint. You can freely click over here and create breakpoints. If you click the red again, it takes it off. What's a breakpoint? When your program is running, it kicks out at that place, and you're in debug mode. Now, if I put my mouse over max num, it says it's 0, which it should be. I haven't done anything yet. This little square here with the arrow, that's step into. Goes down to the next line. If I put my mouse over that, that says max num is 3. That's what it should be. I inputted 3 in. Click my next one. You can also press F11. And now if I put my mouse over int num, that's equal to 1. Do my next one. I'm in the while. Really does, I never have figured out a way to really get a good feel for the truth or false of this. But you can tell when you go to the next line, where does it go to? Well, that must have meant this was true. It would not come down here if this was not true. Now, if I put my mouse over these, I can see what the current values are. Sum is 0, int num is 1. If I run that line of code, 0 plus 1 is 1, and it's going to put it back into sum. So if I run that, I get sum. Int num is currently 1. If I run that line, 1 plus 1 gives us 2. So int num is now 2. I'm at the end while. If I do another, it'll come up here, check that again, and I'll just briefly go through that. And you see it's looping through that. Now to take off your breakpoints, you can click that. You can just click continue to continue. Now let me see if I can write an infinite loop. If you don't have the increment here, some programming languages are smart enough to recognize you got a serious issue here. There's one program, and I wasn't meaning to do it on purpose, but it said this is going to be an infinite loop. I think that was Android Studio. Okay, so I'm not increasing one int num anymore. So if I go to start this, I need to put a debug here, or I'm going to have issues. Like it might hang up and not come back. Okay, put 3 there. Comes out here. I start wondering. Well, first off, you should always save it, by the way, before you run it. I wrote an infinite loop earlier this week, I think. This is last week. Hunt up my machine. I had not saved, so I lost everything. I think that was in Unity with C#. It is easy to do. So try to remember to save your code before you run it. Because all of a sudden, if you put 2 hours into your code and you haven't saved it, potentially you just lost all of that. Some IDEs will save it for you, but it's always just good practice. Okay, so now I'm going to step into, okay, I'm going through, it's not working, and I'm wondering why. I'm right here, by the way, and I see int num is 1, max num is 3. Looping through, getting down to here. I come back to here, int num is still 1, and I'm sitting there, wait a minute, int num is supposed to increase. So that tells me where my issue is. I stop my code right there, and I put my increment line in here. And now it'll work. I hate to repeat until. So I'm just sticking strictly with a while. But again, you can read that. See how to do it. Installed the programmer one time. I said I can do everything with a for loop and a while loop. And I said, everybody can. I said, you don't need the other one. You don't need to repeat or loop, or it's called by different names, different programming languages. I said, if you do, you probably don't know how to code. Being honest. And one person who got insulted in the class, he's worked as a programmer, and another person in the class told me, you're right. You can do everything with a for loop and a while loop. You just have to think about it. This shows do while. So do while that's true. You don't need a do. I wonder why they have that there. Do until, as you saw from the code example I gave you, it perfectly works just fine with a while. I suppose if you want to put a do in front of there, you can. No, it is a while. So why in the world did I put a do while here? Interesting. I don't remember if I put parentheses there or not. The parentheses aren't necessary in Visual Basic. I'm so used to other programming languages that, well, maybe they are. No, they're not. Okay, I don't like that because I'm so used to other programming languages. I'll put them back. But yeah, they got an error here. Whoever wrote this doesn't know how to program. Um, do until. That's the pretest using a loop exit condition. Again, I'm not going to show those. I don't like them. Everything I give you the code, you can do it all with a for loop and a while loop. String concatenation. So we use the and symbol, concatenate them together. It's kind of a weird thing to throw in the middle here, but and then control characters new line constant advances insertion point to the next line. I'll come back to that, and because that'll throw me, because most other programming languages use a plus as a concatenation for strings. So we'll come back to that. Infinite loops, that's what I was talking about. If you don't have that increment set there, you can go in an infinite loop. Here's a do loop. Make that bigger so you can see it. You have a do here, and then you do this, and then you do your check at the end. I don't like those. You can use them if you want. I won't insult you, I promise. Okay. Skip all those, do loop. For next. That's the next one we're going to look at. So I'm going to include in here, and I'll give you some examples here. The for next. I'm going to include in here adding the numbers from 1 to whatever this input. I'll do it with a while loop and I'll do it with a for loop. So I need another blank to put it in. Okay, so this is my first blank. And maybe I'll put something to the side of it to label it. Go down to the text. This was our while loop. I'm putting another text box or label, sorry, on here. Line that up with that. We're going to be dumping something into this, so I need to give it a name. I'll call this LB underscore answer 2. I think the first one was answer 1 or answer. And I'll change the text of it to 0. And I'll put something to the side, another label that tells me this is the for loop. Okay, did I name it? Yeah, I did. Okay, no memory. Okay, now remember, we're working with sum. That's going to give us our sum, our numbers added together. So here, I initialize that. I've initialized it here too. I'm going to skip this. I'm not going to do this initialization. And I'm going to say for x equals 1 to max num. Do I need a do or no, I don't. For x equals 1 to max num. Sum is equal to sum plus x. There we go. Like that. And then I'll say lb answer.tx or text equals to sum dot toString. Now I will show 1 or 2 examples out of the back on that in terms of the exercises, or maybe I'll make some up. But it's always an open invitation that if you're not understanding and you need to see more examples, go to the back of the chapter and email me, say, hey, create number 5. That might take me a couple days to get the video created on it, but I'll work number 5 and I'll send it back to you. Okay, now let's run this, see if it works. Won't work because I didn't put a 2 here. Okay, now we're going to run it and see if it works, and then I'll talk about what in the world this is doing. Put 3 in here, click that, and it puts 6 in both of them, which you should. That's what the numbers added from 1 to 3 give you. 1 plus 2 plus 3 gives you 6. Okay, now let's examine this for loop. See what in the world it's doing. Get rid of the variables that don't make any sense for the for loop. We're still working with max num. We're still working with sum. Okay, so we come down here, and sum is equal to 0. That's this line right here. Then it says for x is equal to 1 to max num. So for temporary purposes, it declares a variable called x and sets it equal to 1. Now, after this for loop gets done running, you cannot access x at all. You cannot try to do anything with it. It's gone. So it's just there temporarily for the for loop. Okay, max num I entered was 3. That's what I put into the text box. So it comes down here, x is equal to 1, and it says sum is equal to sum plus x. Well, the old value of sum is 0, x is 1, 0 plus 1 is 1, and so it puts that into sum now. Hits this next, comes back up here, and all this is doing is just looping from the numbers 1 up to max num. So the next value of x would be x equals 2. Comes down here, sum is equal to sum plus x. The old value of sum is 1 plus x, which is now 2. 1 plus 2 is 3, and writes it back out to sum. Hits the next, comes back up here, increases x by 1, So it does a 3. Now it comes down here, sum is equal to sum plus x. The old value of sum is 3. The value of x is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6, and assigns that back to sum. Hits this next here, comes up here, says, oh, wait a minute, I'm done. Because x is now equal to max num. And then jumps down to here and prints out the value of 6. What does a for loop give you an advantage? You do not have to do the initialization. The initialization is done right here by having a 1. You do not have to do the check. It's checking. It's checking to say, hey, is this still from 1 or still from this number up to this number? It doesn't have to start with 1, by the way. You can put a 2 here, 3, whatever, -5. It does not have to do this increment. It increments it automatically when it comes up here and says, hey, increase x by 1. So all that's built in with the for loop. It is hard to come up with an infinite loop with a for loop. While loops are more prone to infinite loops. So if preference be given, if you can do a for loop to accomplish a task, it's better. It breaks, it's easier, breaks left often, and so forth. Does not have as much flexibility. Up here, I increased int num by 1. I could actually done anything. I could have multiplied by 5 and added 3. So you can do anything there. Total control is what you got with the while loop. This is just increasing by 1. Now there's other options available, and that's what they show you here. See how you got step -1, step 0.01. So you step -1 means that it decreases by 1. Step 0.01 means it increases it by 0.01 each time. So what you'll find is that you have a little bit of flexibility with a step option. Like if I wanted here to have this go by 2s, this would add up all the odd numbers. Because my x value initially is 1. If I add 2 to it, it's 3. Add another 2, it's 5, 7, 9, up to max number. So that'd add up all the odd numbers. Okay. Let's see. Okay, that's the end of that PowerPoint. I'm going to leave it up because I may have to refer back to it. So let's look at some more, maybe more practical examples. So I'm going to close that solution, save that. And create a new project. Over here it has your recent project template, so I'll choose a Visual Basic, click Next. Click Create because that name's fine, but give it a meaningful name when you're programming. Now I'm going to find 5 factorial, or actually just factorial in general. Factorial looks like this. What that means is we're going to multiply the numbers from 1 up to 5 together. Uh, 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 5 times 4 is 20, times 3 is 60, 120. That gives me 120. So that's what we're trying to achieve. It's a loop, as I can see it goes from 1 up to a number. Okay, so I'm going to have them input the number. So I need a toolbox back. Where was my toolbox? There it is. It's like no place for David. I'll put you in the bottom right hand corner. Okay, got my label there. I need a text box. And I have a button. And then my answer. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. So I'm thinking about my next project. Trying to figure out whether to do the average or standard deviation. Should focus on the task at hand. Okay. I want to say number, so go down to my text. It's a number. Give this text box a name. I'll call it TB underscore number. My button, I'm going to have it say calculate factorial. I'm going to give the button a name. Button calculate factorial. This is going to be my answer. So I want text on it say answer. This one will be called LB. Give it a name. LB underscore answer. And give it a text to say 0, so it doesn't say something horrible like label 3 to begin with. To name my button, name my button. Okay, so double click that. And I need to bring in that number. So this will be my maximum number. So dim max num. I'm also going to calculate the factorial, so I call it fact. Actually, I might as well call it factorial. Factorial as integer. Max num is going to equal to, and I'm going to do an integer dot parse, what it was, and tb underscore number dot text. And since I'm multiplying, I want to initialize factorial to 1. If you're summing, you initialize it to 0. If you're multiplying, you initialize it to 1. That's pretty much always a good rule to go with. So then I want a for loop for x equal 1, 2, and I'm going to go up to the number input, which is max num. And then I'll say factorial is equal to factorial times x. And then I need to write that back out to the screen. So I'm going to say LB answer.text is equal to factorial dot toString. So factorial is equal to 1 initially. And x is 1. 1 times 1 is 1, puts it back into 1. Then x increases to 2. And so then I got 1 times 2, which is 2, and then writes that out to factorial. Comes back here, x is 3. So x is 3, factorial is 2. 2 times 3 is 6, writes that back out. and then continues it. If you write this out on paper for like pass 1, pass 2, pass 3, what your variables are, you'll be able to wrap your mind around this if this is totally confusing to you. And I'd recommend that. Factorial is a popular one to see the Masquerade program in many classes. Okay, so if I run that, 5 factorial is 120. So it's working. And that's our factorial. Now, how useful is that in these examples? Well, probably not as useful as you might think. The for loop and while loop are useful in this context if you're doing mathematical programming. If you're doing anything else, probably going to use a different type of structure, which I'm going to show you now. And it was in the PowerPoint slides that I skipped over because I just wanted to show you the example. So do a new project, and I'm going to calculate the average. So I'm going to have input numbers, and then see what the average is. So I got Windows Form, click Next. Average calculation. I'll give it a meaningful name here because I'm doing something a little bit more interesting. And we're going to build this. So, and this the same concept you can use to build a lot of different items. I want a list box. So I'm going to double click the list box, put it over here. List box contains a list of whatever, numbers, names, whatever you want. I may show you concatenating 2 names together and putting them in the list box when we're done here. Okay, let's run this and see what it looks like. Empty list. Okay, well, let's start. I'm going to have a text box somewhere. There's text box. Draw it on here, and I'm going to have a button. When I click this button, I want to take whatever number I put into this text box and have it put in the list. So the button, I want it to have a text that says that. So I'll just move that over from here to here. Now I need to give this a name. This text box, I'll call it TB_number. I'm really an imaginative person. Keep using the same names. This one I'll give a name. I'll call it LBox. LB might be a label. And number list. Now, since I'm going to be programming this, I might as well give it a name. That way I can easily see. This will be button add number to list. Press enter. Now I'm going to double click on that. Like I say, we're going to take this piece by piece. Notice how it self-documents now. Button, add number to list. Okay, now if I do an LBox, start typing that, see LBox number list. And if I do a dot, then there's a items, dot, and there's an add. And now I can type in LB, was it LB? No, TB, number, dot text. The add will add whatever's inside the parentheses here, it'll add into the list box. Has to be like this, has to have your name, LBox number list, dot items, dot add. It's always dot items, dot add. And then whatever you want to add to it, you put in the parentheses here. So if I run this, if I put the number 3 in my text box and click this button, it puts 3 over there. If I put 4 in here, it puts 4 over there. What I'd really like is for this to be blanked out after each time. So I don't have to keep doing that. So I click 5, it puts that over there. Now if I keep hitting that, it'll repeat the numbers. Okay, so I want to blank out the text box. How in the world do I do that? Well, after I added the number, I do TB underscore number dot clear. So I click this. Clear clears out words in the text box. So I click here, do a 3, and if I click this button, you see it cleared it out. But now I have to click over here to put my focus on there. And do it 4, 5. What I really like is when I click the button, I'd like the focus to be back there. Later on, of course, we're going to see what you really like also is to press enter and have it automatically add a number. Now this one I don't remember, but I know generally what it's supposed to be. It's like set focus or something like that. Where do I put that? TB number dot set focus. No. Focus. There it is. Focus equals true, or what is this? The function is Boolean sets input focus to the control. Okay. So that's how we would set the focus. What does that mean? It means it puts your cursor in that blank. Okay, so put 3 in here, click the button there. Now my cursor's back in there. So I just type 4, do that, 2, 5, and so forth. Now what I really like is when I run it, I want my cursor to be there in the first place. See how my cursor's not there? I'm having to click here and then click here. Well, how do we do that? Let's see. If I come up to my form here, I've been double clicking these, and sometimes that's correct, usually the right code. Let's double click the form itself and see what's there. This says form 1 load. Yeah, that's what I want. So I'll say TB number dot focus. That'll set my focus when the form loads. So let's run that. You know, it didn't work. That's interesting. Maybe it wasn't load where I want that. By the way, I think I can highlight this and delete it. Used to be able to anyway. Let me run it to make sure I didn't break it. Some of these programming languages don't like that very well, but if I remember right, Visual Basic was very forgiving. Okay, I'm gonna come back here to this tab, go back here to my form. So click my form. Over here, you got these buttons across the top. This is categorize, this is alphabetical, this is properties, and this is events. So if it's not on load, what in the world would it be on? Show? Is there a show? I'll make this a little bit bigger down here so I can see what in the world these are. This occurs whenever the form is first shown. That sounds like it. So since I got shown here, if I double click that, it'll bring up shown. TB number dot focus. You got to be willing, if you're going into programming, do a little bit of experimenting, a little bit of research, going out on Google and so forth. That's better. Now it's in the box. So now if I type 3, then I just click here, and it starts with the. Okay. Now I got that. Well, what if I want to remove a number? Well, let's drop another button on here. And this is going to be remove. What do I call this one? I call this one add number to list. So this is remove number from list. So let me give it a name. I have to go back to my alphabetical here or categorized. not that, alphabetical. Maybe I'm lying to you. Categorized. Oh, it's still got that's it. Go back to properties. There's alphabetical. And now that I've done all that talking, I forgot what was put here. Remove from list. Not quite what I think I said, but that'll work. And I want the text on it to be the arrow going the other direction. It's kind of universal ways of representing that. So when I click this, it should remove the number from the list. So I need to retrieve the number from the list, but I'm going to double click this. This part I may have to play with a little bit. A list. Excel, where's Excel? Say I got a list of numbers. I got 3, 8, 2, 1. We have an index that goes with the list. We're going to see arrays later on, and this deals with arrays too. The indexing starts at 0. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's what our indexing is. So if I say, go get me number 0, you would tell me 3. If I told you, go get me number 2, you'd give me 2, and so forth. So here, I need to declare IDX, maybe this index, as integer. This is going to be what position is highlighted. So index is going to equal to lbox number list dot items selected item. What's selected item give me? Gets or sets the currently selected item in the list. I think that's the one I want. Dot. I don't think that's the one I want. Selected index. Gets or sets a zero-based index of the currently selected item in the list box. Zero-based index means it starts at 0, like what I just told you. That sounds more promising. So that's going to retrieve the number. Then I want to do an lbox number list dot items dot remove at that index. Okay, let's see if this works. Then I'll come back and explain it. Okay, 3, click that, 4, 8, 2. I don't want 8. This says not right. So I highlight it over here, click it, and then I click this, and it removes it from my list. If I don't have anything selected and I click it, it blows up. That's okay. We're not handling error checking yet, so don't stress about that. We'll talk error checking later on. But anyway, you see it's working. Okay, let me grab a drink. If I want to clear the entire list, let's take a look at that. By the way, what I'm showing you here is how you could implement any problem that wants you to bring in a list of numbers. Okay. Bring that here. This is going to be my clear list. I don't know anything else except for on text to say clear list. And I want to give it a name. Otherwise, I'm going to have a bunch of button 1, button 2, button 3 code that I don't have no clue what they do. So button clear list. Okay, so let me double click that. It's gonna be so easy, you'll be shocked. I'm gonna do my LBox number list dot clear. Ah, spoke too soon. Is there no clear? Items dot clear. Okay, helps to actually put the items in there. Now if I run this, 3, 4, 5, 2. I press clear list, clears my list out. Well, now I'm ready to do the average, which means I need to loop through all my numbers in my list. So down here, I'm going to have a button. I'll put it down here. And then I need a label to put my answer in. This will be my average. Okay, so for my button here, my text, I want it to say calculate average. And give it a name because I want to program that. So button calculate average. And my label, I give it a name. LB underscore average. And set the text of that to 0. I could even do blank if I wanted to. Okay. Let's see how in the world to loop through this list. By the way, we're kind of working with arrays already when we're working with lists. But you'll see the idea why we're covering it now early. Well, average, by the way, is your sum of your numbers divided by your count of your numbers. So if I had 3, 7, that adds up to 10 and 2, then my sum is equal to 12. And my average would be 12, the sum of the numbers, divided by how many I have. I have 3 of them. So my average would be 4. So that's what we're trying to achieve, which means I need to have a variable for sum. And I'm going to make it integer. Although if I make it double, it's a little bit more robust. You can put decimals into the list box. And I need average. I also need count, but we're going to get that another way. So I need to loop through my list box. So for x equals 0 to LBox, this I'll have to play with a little bit probably, dot count, dot items, dot get count or count. There it is. Now the count is actually how many numbers are in there. So if we put 3, 7, and 2 in our list box, the count should be 3, which means it's going from 0 to 3. That's not what we want. Like notice here, I have 4 numbers, don't I? 3, 8, 2, and 1, but it goes from 0 to 3. So it goes 1 less than 4. So this over here, I'm guessing, I'll know when I run it the first time, I need to do minus 1. So if I have 3 numbers in there, it'll be 3 minus 1, which is 2. It'll go from 0 to 2. I know it's weird, but that index-based is just how they always do lists and arrays and so forth. So then sum is going to equal to sum plus, and I need to retrieve the value from the list box. Now, when I retrieve the value from the list box, it's going to be a string. So I need to convert it to an integer, or a double, I should say. So double dot, was it parse? No memory. And then LBox, number list, dot, this part I'll play with, I'm sure, items, and then bracket, and then X, dot toString. Not even close, unless I'm just missing a. Did that work? I may have to look at that PowerPoint myself. Gets the items of the list box. Did I say bracket? I don't think that's right, but we'll try it. I don't think items should be there. But I don't teach Visual Basic every day, so to refresh my own memory. It's so different than the other programming languages. So then my average would equal to my sum divided by my count. So back to my LBox number list dot items dot count. And I don't want this to be a -1 because I want this to be the real count, like 3 items. And then I'll write that out. So I'll say LB underscore average dot text equals to average dot toString. Let's run that, see if it works, and I'll explain the code. Okay, so what numbers did I have in my 3, 7, and 2? 3, 7, 2. The calculate average gives me 4. Let's try putting another number in there, 5. That'll throw it off. I should get decimals. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus another 7 is 14. 17 divided by 4 seems reasonable. It's 4 point something without a calculator. Okay, so it's coming down here. We declare these, of course. The 4x equals 0 to LBox numbers items count -1. That's what I just said here, where your index is 0 and it goes 1, 2, 3 for the number of items. So it's 1 less than your actual count. Sum is equal to sum, so it grabs the old value of sum plus this is pulling the item off the list. So it's you can think of it as like in Excel. When I'm over here, and I got my cursor here, it's like down arrow, down arrow, down arrow. So it's pulling numbers off the list. That's what this part does right here. This gets the number at this position. And the X starts at 0, goes up to 2, 0, 1, and 2 for 3 items. And then converts it to a string, and then converts it to a parse. Now, what reason I have to convert to a string is this comes off as an object, so it's no data type at all. So that's why you have to convert it to something initially, and I don't think you can do a two double. But I chose toString, and then the double dot parse here converts it to a double and adds it to sum. But that would be your average program. Okay, let me see what kind of what's in the book. I do want to show you the concatenation, but that'll be straightforward. The book. There's the book. Assuming that's chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, 5. This is what we did. List box to a form. I used the selected index is what I chose. You can read in the book, see how to use selected item. We use count. We cleared items from a list box. So we pretty well did everything we needed to do there. Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm not going to get into those. I'm going to stick with the introductory stuff for the assignments. I like number 2 because what it was asking is adding 5 state names to a list box. When the user clicks a name in the list box's select index change procedure should display the name of the state's capital and label control. This is like in the if statement. So you're hard coding it in. That's probably the easiest way to do it. There's other ways to do it. Now, if you're wondering, well, how do I add something to the list box? You never showed that. Well, the book would tell you. But also over here, you see there's a items collection, and I can right click on it, and you see added items. Kansas, Missouri. I'm pressing enter after each one. Oklahoma. Click OK. Comes up like that. You also see the collections over here. Do the 3 little dots. Brings up the same window. So that's how you can populate it to begin with. And we could use the same selected index that I had here, where you could say, okay, if this index is equal to 0, then the state capital is Topeka. So you put Topeka into a text box, or whatever the problem's saying. So yeah, I think I'll go ahead and sign that one. And then I want to show you the concatenation. So let me drop on a text box here. Drop on another text box. And a button. Now I'm going to add this to my list box up here. So I need to give this one a name. This will be my first name. So I'll call this TB underscore F name. This one, I'll call this TB underscore L name. And I won't name that. I'll just double click it. So I need to build a string. So I'm going to say dim full name as string. And I'll say full name is equal to TB first name plus, not plus, and a space, and then TB underscore last name. I didn't put a text on that, so I'll go back and fix that. Text. This will retrieve the value in that text box. Retrieve the value in this text box, and these and symbols will concatenate together with a space in between it. Now I want to add this to my list. So list box, lbox number list dot items. I know it doesn't make any sense to add a string on there, but then I'll type in full name. So you can put anything in there, integers, doubles. You can add anything with the add. It's pretty robust in how they've designed that. I can't see that, so bring that down. David Hayes. Then I click button 1, and it'll add that in. I keep doing it, it'll add it over and over. So I could clear these out and do a lot of different things like we showed before. Okay, I think I'm just going to assign the one project on there just to get you comfortable, because there's a lot of different pieces with working with list boxes and so forth. And I would encourage you to extend it further. This is talking about hard coding it, putting it in the list box, but you could, well, no, leave it at that. If you want to program more, you can. So it's a good idea. The more you program, the easier it gets. If you're wondering, oh, how's it come so easy to you? Well, that's because I've written program after program. If you do that, then you get used to these programming structures. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there, and then I'll upload everything.